And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather Smash Show, coming at you here from the Smash News Network, least busted name of news, bringing you the most detailed imagery of the sun and most comprehensive space weather you'll find in the known universe. Whew. Starting things out here with some composite imagery of the closest star. In fact, let me bring out some additional imagery here. I forgot to put one up. This is the 171 angstroms plus 304. Some new sunspots have formed in the northeast. Some coronal mass ejections have occurred, and a major earthquake to cover in Turkey. Let's go around the horn here. What the heck? There is the northeastern limb. Lots of filaments up there around the north solar polar, the heliographic North Pole. Not to be confused with the magnetic North Pole, which is on the opposite side of the sun. Here is our southwestern limb. Great view of the Hulk Hogan filament. Check it out. Check it out, all my Hulkamaniacs. Keep saying your prayers, doing your exercises, and taking your vitamins, brother. There you can see some filamentary eruption happening there. We asked you to name that filament yesterday. Nobody did. Nobody sees our tweets anyway, so who really cares? And here is the northeastern limb. Again, some new sunspots forming up there, not the least of which is this one. The most of which is this one. It's significant, and you can expect a further increase in the sunspot number and the radio flux today. Now, of course, we did stream an extended stream yesterday. Stream to me an extended stream. And we regularly show the sun all day long on the Twitch channel. Some of those spectacular coronal mass ejections there captured on the GOES 16 SUVI. And then additional activity happening later in the day as well. So let's move that back a little bit. You can see some other coronal mass ejections happening there. It was an interesting day yesterday, so let's take a look at yesterday plus today in SDO intensitygram. We've got some umbral growth over here. We've got some umbral evaporation to its northeast. New sunspot rapidly growing here. It's already what you'd call large, approaching the size of the Earth itself. So we'll have some more named sunspot groups today. Here's your SDO magnetogram. We're going to talk earthquakes here in a moment. First, volcanoes. Shivaluch is still exploding, producing a flight level 160 over Kamchatka. It's a 16,000-foot ash plume. Chikaratsky volcanic ash not identifiable in satellite imagery. Not sure if it's erupting or not. Abiko is erupting, though. It's producing a 12,000-foot plume of volcanic ash over Paramushir Island. It's flight level 120. Flight level 060 over Suwanosejima. Flight level, I have no idea, over Popocatépetl. Flight level 200 over Popocatépetl in central Mexico. It's a 20,000-foot ash cone coming from the exploding Mexican volcano. Santiaguito and Fuego, both erupting now in an explosive fashion in Guatemala. 14,000-foot ash plume from Santiaguito, 13,000-foot ash plume from Fuego. And Sangay in Ecuador exploding as well. Please don't pole vault the caldera. It's producing a 19,000-foot plume of volcanic ash, or flight level 190. Next, look at seismicity, which will be a story all over the internet today. You'll probably even hear some hacky YouTube channels claiming that they forecasted the Turkish earthquake, which was at kind of a weird spot, not a real common place to see an earthquake. Seismic activity currently at the extreme level, following the 7.5 magnitude earthquake at Turkey. So here's some imagery of it. This is from a Zero Hedge article. And if you want to share those tweets on Twitter, feel free to tag us in those tweets. There's some horrifying imagery, and it was quite near a populated area, so it happened just south of a city or town or some kind of population zone. There's some destruction. Great example of why you ought to know which building facades might collapse. Do you know which buildings are built to earthquake code in your area? Anyway, here's some more imagery. Oh, let's don't do that. Let's don't do that. I didn't mean to go to Twitter there. And what else do we have? Here's some more imagery here. Yowzers.
Fidanlık mahallesine Binevler noktanın arkasında bir bina göçmüş. Yaklaşık 10 kişi olduğu söyleniyor.
So, quite a bit of destruction there in Turkey. That 7.8 magnitude earthquake downgraded. And it's not going to go full screen for us. That's okay. Anyway, again, that article is from Zero Hedge. So here's the location of that quake. It was just south of this town right here, Ekinozu. And it was at a rather uncommon spot for earthquakes based on where the fault lines are located. Like there's a fault line down here somewhere to its south, but it's not really on a fault line. It's kind of far north above the fault line. And there's a location of that 7.5 magnitude quake. That came in at 10:24 Universal Time this morning. And let's see what else happened on the past 24 hours. We don't want to ignore any earthquake activity. Oh. I stand corrected. There were two 7+ magnitude quakes there. That one was at 1:17 this morning. That was a 7.8. Looks like no real warning there either. Just out of nowhere, a 7.8 strikes. And then massive aftershocks, including a 6.7 and even a 7.5. So tons of quakes have happened in that area. Major seismic unrest there occurring in Turkey. That was also felt in Syria, Lebanon, etc. There's a 7.5 magnitude aftershock, adding insult to injury. Check out all the quakes that have just occurred in that area. That is a quake swarm. Anyway, here's this fault line. You can see the 7.5 occurred way up here. The 7.8 was to the east of that fault line. And by the way, if you enjoy the content, take a moment to press like, subscribe, share, etc. Become a member of the Smash Team if you want to support the channel. Thanks for leaving comments, Acrylic D and Mike Bordages. The best way to support the channel is by becoming a member of the Smash Team, perhaps at smashomash.com/SmashTeam. We've already released the hypothesis as to what actually causes solar cycles to our Gold Smash Team members. If you want to hear about that, well, you got to help us write the paper by becoming a member of the gold member of the Smash Team. Gold level Smash Team members, they pay at least $9.99 a month, and the best value is the annual paid up subscription. It includes complimentary merch. And of course, we also send out email alerts for things like tsunamis and our major video releases at smashomash.com/SmashTeam. There's a gold, a silver, a bronze level, and a gold annual paid-up subscription level there. You can also support us via Patreon. If it's more convenient for you to send us a couple bucks per month there, then feel free. We're also on Redbubble. If you haven't checked out the description links below this video, there should be links in the description linking you to our Redbubble shop. You'll find our products in order of best selling. Save 20% site-wide on the official merch of the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Today's featured product is our most recent release. Again, save 20% site-wide because reasons. So we demand accountability, and we demand that certain big tech organizations fix their junkware. since they're operating zombie corporations with 20-year outdated software. Centralization and censorship are dead, and the sooner zombie corporations realize that, the sooner they can enter back into the world of reality. At the moment, they're not doing that because reasons. Markets don't forgive nor forget, and neither does the universe. But you should, because holding a grudge is like ingesting poison and expecting the other person to die. So pick up some merch, give Smash Staff a raise. She needs one because reasons that we will not get into on this video. Yes, Smash Staff is a partner in the operation, by the way. And let's get back to space, as most of this video will be focused on space weather. We do spend a little bit of time looking at Crescent Earth. By the way, the 10.7 centimeter radio flux now up to 144 solar flux units. So an increase in the radio flux there as we forecasted yesterday. Here's some more solar imagery for you, by the way. This is 304 plus 335 angstroms. Shows some great depth there and some great contrast to solar filaments. Again, radio flux now at 144 solar flux units. It did not make it below 130. That was our forecast. And let us know where you think this is going to top out for solar cycle 25. As we've made it all the way up to 234 solar flux units for the radio flux, the most proportional data set to sunspot number. You can see how they are proportional. The red line is the sunspot number, the black line is the radio flux, and this pink line here is the 30-day Wolf number, an average of the sunspot number. You can see we've peaked at over 170 sunspots already for solar cycle 24. One of the many indications that it's a much stronger solar cycle. Solar cycle 25. Yeah, solar cycle 25 has made it all the way up to 174, I think it is, for the Wolf number there. The 30-day Wolf number, vastly exceeding solar cycle 24. It's just facts, so deal with them and let the chips fall where they may. NOAA forecasting a little bit of geomagnetic unrest for early tomorrow morning on February 7th. Expecting a KP4 there. We recently got into a KP4 here just a few hours ago. And let's take a look at some additional data here, like the KP index. So KP now 3.33. The KP index, a measurement of global geomagnetism. Let's take a look at Earth's magnetic moment from space. I believe we'll see a slight ramping down here of the magnetohydrodynamic pressure depicted in this model. That is the past 4 hours, if everything's going according to plan. And we are awaiting a density spike in the solar wind, marking the incoming coronal hole high-speed stream. So here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. We showed you it from space. Here it is from the ground also. The scale here, nanotesla. And it should also be the past 4 hours. We did see some aurorae kick up, and if you've got aurora imagery you'd like us to share on the channel or something like that, drop us a line on Twitter or perhaps even Instagram. And let's look at the real-time solar wind. So again, we are waiting for a significant density increase. That will mark the shock front of the about-to-arrive coronal hole high-speed stream. You can expect that any time in the next 12 to 24 hours. At the moment, solar wind is at a density of 13 protons per cubic centimeter, solar wind speed just under 440 kilometers per second. Goes magnetometers here showing some rather spiky readings there. Again, we are expecting a coronal hole high-speed stream to show up soon, which will show up first as an increase in the density, followed by a decrease in the density and an increase in the solar wind speed. At the moment, those are your GOES magnetometers for the past 3 days. And let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet. There may be a delay in the arrival of the North Pole current sheet because of some significant sunspots we're seeing in the northern hemisphere. So don't be surprised to see this take a few days to arrive. North Pole current sheet depicted here in green, South Pole current sheet depicted here in red. As we see significant activity in the northeast. Anyway, here is your line of sight field plot. You may see the B field being pulled up a little bit toward those sunspots. Not yet. Solar B field depicted here in blue, north solar polar field in green on the opposite side of the sun, south solar polar field in red. I would also note that on this imagery right here, you can see significant north pole magnetism still hanging out at the north solar pole. And these lined red regions, that's south pole magnetism hanging out at the south pole. So there's a long way to go for the solar polar field migration to happen. In other words, we've got a long way to go to get through solar cycle 25. Next, looking at coronal holes. We've got some North Pole-oriented coronal holes rotating here in the east. Those should become more well-defined in the coming days. So these over here, these are North Pole coronal holes. There's one up there. There's one down there. These are South Pole-oriented coronal holes. And let's take a look at sunspots next. So we'll have at least 2 new named sunspot groups up here in the north. Maybe even 3. I'm not sure if that one will get a name or not, but we should have, let's see, 3213 and 3214 will be these new groups, I believe. Let's take a look at those from SDO. There's SDO Continuum plus 131 angstroms. So we've got significant sunspot regions rising here in the east. And you can expect continued ramping up of solar activity as we've just watched the south solar polar region gain a bunch of sunspots as it rotates through the Earth-facing zone. Now all those sunspots that have set about a week ago are fixing to rise back up. So it should be interesting. Let's get rid of the 131 angstroms there. Again, we've got some growth down here. We've got some evaporation down here as well, and some significant growth up here. So we'll have 3 new named sunspot groups. This one here, this one down here, and this one that just rose. So at least 3 new named sunspot groups today. A further increase in the radio flux. Solar cycle 25, it's significantly more active than solar cycle 24. Next, looking at the ghost proton flux here, a tiny little spike there just after midnight. Unlikely to have caused any polar radio blackouts or anything like that. Peak flux there was around 0 dark 50. Just about 1 a.m. it looks like, actually. 1 a.m. universal time, a tiny spike in the proton flux. Nothing to write home about. And check it out, the largest solar flare of the past 24 hours occurred while we were streaming the show. So there we go. Peak flux of that, it was nearly a C8, C7.9 flare approximately. Peak flux of that was 1210 universal time on today, February 6th. We'll show you some imagery of that here a little bit later in the video. Here's the past 24 hours in 94 plus 131 angstroms. Don't be surprised to see major solar flares here, as we've got a major uptick in sunspot activity once again. So next we're going to look at a star chart. We're always interested in what's going on overhead. We've got the moon setting as the sun rises here as we approach the February full moon. So if you've got a low horizon, you might see Mercury rising ahead of the sun there. That's the horizon, what the horizon might look like around Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. If you want to make your own, head to skyandtelescope.org. It's our new star chart data, and I think it's just splentacular. Next, we'll do a solar system forecast as we approach the February full moon. Here's where things are now. Oh, I think today's a full moon. There's where things will be in a week. We'll be going into last quarter there, as we'll be switching from a gibbous waning to a crescent waning moon in about 8 days. Anyway, that's where things are in the solar system to give you a little bit of orientation before we show stuff like coronal mass ejections. So we've had some significant ones, and you're probably wondering if they're directed toward the Earth. And the answer is no. But let's just see what we see here. That's yesterday's imagery, which is back up, by the way, at George Mason University. The Soho Lasco C2 is back up. So there's 106 frames from yesterday, and here are an additional 23 frames from today. And no, those coronal mass ejections are not earthly directed. So let's take a look at stereo A plus Soho Lasco C3 here briefly. Again, we did cover those splentacular CMEs on yesterday's Twitch stream. We typically start our Twitch stream right after we premiere the daily space weather videos on YouTube. So if you want to install the Twitch mobile app, it'll actually let you know when we go live, unlike certain junkware apps that barely function on their best day. YouTube. So there's the last 24 hours. No, they are not earthly directed. Now, let me go back for a minute just to explain what I mean. So we don't see any CMEs on the Earth line here. I mean, from stereo A's perspective, the CME would have to head off in this direction. And we ain't got none. Anyway, here's a slight zoom in. And I think the best images actually will be the full zoom. Great at showing the origin of those CMEs with 304 angstroms. Great stuff there from the SOHO and SDO spacecraft. Continuing on to look at filaments. This is the Cerro Tololo, Chile, ground-based solar observatory. We've got the Hulk Hogan filament. We've got the Stella Lesher filament. And I don't think any of the rest of these have names. So we need your assistance naming filaments. So why not join us on Twitter in order to name that, not main, name that filament. If you want to name filaments, hit us up on Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter account, why not get one? If you want free samples of mushroom gummies, you can find that as well on the Twitter feed. And let's take a look at the last 24 from SDO in our house favorite wavelength, 171 angstroms. It's just the best wavelength. I mean, I don't know. Let us know what you think is your favorite wavelength. Keep in mind the color is, of course, artificial because this is all ultraviolet light, not visible to the naked eye. Even if you were in space, you would not be able to see this because it's at a higher frequency than the human eye is able to detect. It's extreme ultraviolet. Let's take a look at 304 angstroms from the GOES 16 SUVI. Since we just had a nearly M-class flare, I'll bet it came from up here. The heck? Where did it come from? Was it this down here? I guess it was this flare down here. I'm a little stumped on that one. Let us know in the comments what you think as we move to our bonus features segment. So first thing we're looking at is charging hazards here, and satellite charging hazards do exist. We've got some surface charging by low-energy electrons building up on the outside of satellites here in the central Pacific Ocean and moving west. That's our satellites community dashboard. Some minor charging hazards there in the Pacific. Here is your GOES electron flux here, quite low, and we can expect it to be even lower when that coronal hole high-speed stream shows up. Looks like NOAA might agree there. Expecting lower levels of electron flux. Let's take a look at the one-year chart to put it in context. Again, very low levels of electron flux here over the past couple of weeks, actually. And we'll take a look at the F layer of the ionosphere as well. The vibrational frequency therein gives us insight into what's going on at the bridge between Earth and space. As we get closer and closer to planet Earth and our meteorology segment. So this is the past day in vibrational frequency of the ionosphere. We've got some major anomalies continuing here, especially around the eastern Pacific, southeastern Pacific there, around South America. So they may not be obvious to you. We've also got low and high frequency anomalies hanging out around South America. So they'll be really obvious in the anomalygram, which we've depicted here. Huge high frequency anomalies happening around the central part of the planet. And then huge low and high frequency anomalies happening in the South Pacific. It looks like the South Atlantic anomaly is trying to move again. I mean, we see evidence of it down here and down here. So this is interesting. This could be a new South Atlantic anomaly forming, maybe a second weak spot, or maybe it's migration to the South Atlantic anomaly. And if it moves farther and farther from the equator, that's an oddity. Let us know what you think about the magnetic excursion. I think it will end with absolutely nothing interesting happening at all. I don't think for a second that Earth's magnetic fields are going to reverse during your lifetime. There's just as much evidence to suggest that it will not happen as there is to suggest that it will. Many channels want to frighten you into believing stuff that is not founded in facts. And we avoid that on our channel. Anyway, there's the latest image at 12:15 Universal Time. Ionogram and 12:30 Universal Time. Anomalygram showing anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. We'll also show the total electron content forecast, which depicts the free electrons between your GPS satellite and your handset. That's a run of about 12,500 miles. And we can expect this to become quite a bit more chaotic. So we've got major GPS errors here continuing over the North American continent, and some major nighttime GPS errors here. This is still pretty chaotic and pretty anomalous. When the coronal hole high-speed wind stream shows up in earnest, you can expect this to be even more anomalous. Caused by an excitation of the outer Van Allen belt, I would suggest. Keep in mind, this is the free electrons from the inner portion of the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt, which is at about 12,500 miles down to your handset. Your GPS has to communicate through a plasmasphere, the inner Van Allen belt, another plasmasphere, and the ionosphere to get the signal to your handset, and those free electrons can cause massive signal refraction. Turn on Wi-Fi accuracy. If you're experiencing major GPS errors, if there are Wi-Fi hotspots around, that might help you to get clear navigation. Next, here is your latest intensitygram and latest colorized magnetogram. Again, it's a conflagration, as we've got a new sunspot, which is quite large. In fact, that might even be named two sunspots. This might be considered a beta-gamma class, and that might be considered an alpha class if they were to be named at the moment. But this one also needs a name, and so does this one. So major uptick there in sunspots. You can expect a continued increase in the 10.7 centimeter radio flux as well. That's what's going on. And it's time to move to meteorology, but first, let's take a look at ocean currents. So we're looking at ocean currents and sea surface temperature anomaly here. And New Zealand is in hot water. Yeah, check it out. Anomalously hot water. 5.7 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. And it's already summertime there. Also some very cold water around southern Australia. And we just like to show occasionally different capabilities of nullschool.net's great data sets here. See that cold equatorial Pacific water. Also, it's anomalously cold around Antarctica. The Pacific, it looks like it's getting colder and colder. Also, major temperature gradients here on opposite sides of the Drake Passage. Hot water in the South Atlantic, cold water in the South Pacific. Northern Indian Ocean, very cold. Northern Pacific, quite hot. Also, the Gulf Stream continues on. Also, the U.S. coast is got anomalously cold water. Look at all the cold water around the U.S. coast. Anomalously hot water around places like Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Anyway, the jet stream's still making it to Europe. Don't expect a year without a summer. At least not in the northern hemisphere. And let us know how your weather's been treating you in the southern. Shout out to our viewers from Munda. This is your jet stream scenario for the eastern world. These are the surface winds of this side of the planet. Surface winds of the western world shown here. We've got some interesting weather kicking up in the U.S. Atlantic Ocean area, the western Atlantic. Here are the jet streams. We've got like a tripled up jet stream there over the North American continent, and some major jet stream bends happening. Chaotic jet stream in the southern hemisphere, jet streams of the central world depicted here. And we've got a high pressure system over the United Kingdom. Yeah, the UK there. An upper level high happening overhead. And last but not least, these are the surface winds. Another windy day in the eastern Mediterranean. Continuing on, let's take a look at the latest advertisement. If you haven't seen it, check out our videos from yesterday. We put out some videos about free mushroom gummies. If you haven't seen it, check out the videos on our list. You can find all kinds of links there, links to the Hemp Lucid shop, as well as to the free samples. Press like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy the content. So 2 videos yesterday, the unboxing and review there of the, it was the Focus gummies. And then we put up the brochures as well, so you can see what they're for. You can also find all kinds of videos not related to space weather and meteorology on our playlists. Have you heard the 12 Days of Smashmas? Yeah, we released original music on the first 12 days of December for your listening pleasure. The official homepage of the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, is smashomash.com. And welcome to your renaissance. Why was it built? Because in 2019, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped a maximum security, pathetic social media stockade to the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire, before we vanish, the Smash team. No, you certainly can. Just click on that, and you can subscribe and get all kinds of additional content that nobody else gets to see. If you haven't checked out the Hemp Lucid links below the video, check them out. I'm told there's not even shipping charged for the free samples of mushroom gummies. All kinds of other products available there as well. And make sure you watch our product review from yesterday. We talked about everything from CBD body balms to lip balms to various different types of gummies and stacks. Again, links below the video to the Hemp Lucid affiliate shop. Thanks to everybody who's picked up merch, by the way. So this is Clouds and Fog over the Americas as we transition into closer and closer to planet Earth. And we will zoom in on the U.S. here in a moment. And welcome to Croissant Earth. All right, so here's your weather.gov map. It looks like windy days on at least on Lake Michigan. And check it out, winter weather advisories there on Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea. We scroll down to show you the key. If your location's lit on the map, head to weather.gov and click your location, and here's some forecasts. So we've got a strong low here off the coast of North and South Carolina there, and it's going to create some heavy winds up the east coast of the U.S. That is our 72-hour GFS 10-meter wind and pressure. We'll also show the pressure and precipitation. And in about 60 hours, we're going to see a strong low forming here over southeastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, and eastern Arkansas. Last but not least, your 72-hour GFS temperature anomaly forecast. Expecting some quite hot temperatures here in places like western Kentucky and Tennessee especially. Also Missouri, Illinois, expecting some well above average temperatures. That is your temperature anomaly in degrees Celsius. for the next 72 hours based on the GFS model. And let's take a look at snow depth. So interesting here on windy.com. We've got some snow way down here in Mexico. Check it out. Way down at Huachochi. All the way down at Huachochi, there is snow on the ground in Mexico. Also significant snow there in New Mexico and Arizona, large portions of Southern California. Some desert snow currently exists. And check it out, there's so much hot air in Colorado that only the western portion of the state is coated. A lot of hot air coming out of Colorado. Because a lot of hack frauds live in Colorado. Next, look at the lightning mapper to see a powerful thunderstorm here northeast of the Bahamas and moving up toward Bermuda. So some strong lightning there. And it continues on. Here's your real-time lightning map from lightningmaps.org. Well, apparently there's been a lull in the activity. Anyway, next time you hear thunder, check it out. It's a good time. Convince your friends and foes that you're Zeus and that you've summoned the thunder or something. Next, we're going to close things out with U.S. Doppler radar. Clouds and fog over the U.S. and water vapor. So there are the full 50 states of AUSA, the allegedly United States of America. Welcome to the Banana Republic. Here are the clouds and fog. As you see that strong system there moving up the East Coast. And there is water vapor. As we see a huge pressure gradient forming right in this area. There's a bunch of dry, massive air pushing down here, colliding. And there's a bit of a pincer effect happening down here. It's like a blitzkrieg. Let's close this thing out with a recap of the U.S. Doppler radar. A bunch of snow showers and rain showers in the northwestern portion of the country. There is clouds and fog. It's too dark over about half of the country to be able to use the visible satellite, so we use a 3.9 nanometer infrared radiation. And there is your water vapor map. It shows all the water vapor, not just clouds and fog. And some huge pressure gradients there forming over the U.S., and thanks for tuning in. Let's create some huge pressure gradients for you to press like, subscribe, and share. Anyway, thanks for leaving comments. Twitch viewers, we'll see you soon at the Smash News Network. Least busted name and news. In the meantime, I'll have been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network. Least busted name in news.